Good morning, everyone. This meeting of the House Environmental Committee will now come to order. Andrew, can you take the roll?
Vitale.
Present.
Brown.
Designation present.
Fleming.
Designation present.
Hohenstein.
Designation present.
Isaacson.
Here.
Kazim.
Designation present.
Otten.
Designation present.
Pieli.
Designation present.
Rivera.
Designation present.
Salisbury.
Designation present.
Siegel.
Designation present.
Steele.
Designation present.
Takak.
Designation present.
Webster.
Here.
Rader.
Here.
Bashline.
Designation.
Day.
Here.
Flick.
Is it?
Flick.
Like designation?
Okay. James.
Present.
Mahaffey. Pugh.
Designation.
Schmidt.
Designation.
Schaefer.
Designation.
Stender. Twarzik.
Designation.
Wentling.
Here. Okay, a quorum being present, we are ready to proceed. Mary, would you lead us in the pledge?
Of course. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. The record will note that Rep. Fleming is present. We have 3 items on our agenda today: House Resolution 218, Senate Bill 109, and House Bill 364. Before we take up the first item, Chair Rader, do you have any opening thoughts?
I do not.
Okay. Very good. The chair calls up House Resolution 218, printers number 1554. Staff, will you read a summary of that resolution?
House Resolution 218 directs the Legislative Budget and Finance Committee to conduct a study on compensation and benefits packages for game wardens, waterway conservation officers, and DCNR rangers.
So the question is, will the committee report the resolution? Rep. Haddock, thank you for your work on this issue. Would you like to make a couple of remarks on this, on your resolution?
Sure. Thank you, Chair Vitale and Chair Rader, for this opportunity to present House Resolution 218. It's a study of the salary and benefits for conservation officers, and it directs the Legislative Budget and Finance Committee to conduct a study on salaries and benefits of conservation officers in Pennsylvania, comparing them to conservation officers in neighboring states and other law enforcement services within Pennsylvania. My history and backdrop is that I'm a tremendous outdoorsman. I love to hunt and fish and hike, and I've been in advocacy long before I was in the state house. So I was aware that the 3 conservation departments within Pennsylvania has had a hard time filling their ranks. Then when I became a state representative, I went on the House and Game and Fish Commission, Fisheries Committee, and at the first budget hearing, I asked both executive directors of the Game and Fish why, and they said they have problems with their Title 30 and 34, and then they have problems when it comes time to negotiate a contract because the Office of Administration is involved and they don't have a lot of direct support or powers to fix a problem that they've readily identified as keeping and hiring our conservation officers. So I did some research and I found out one of the avenues that we can use in the state is to direct the Legislative Budget and Finance Committee to do a study and compare salaries And this is just another tool to try to expose this problem. I've talked to I'll use the Fish Commission. They have graduated a class on a Friday, and at that time they used Act 120 was part of their criteria. The next week, they lost 3 cadets to outside employment because of the salary structure here in Pennsylvania, and the bleeding has not stopped within these 3 agencies. So this study will hopefully bring to light some discrepancies, and maybe we can address a problem in Pennsylvania that we have because those conservation officers are law enforcement officers by definition, and they are people that carry a gun every day because of the nature of their work. So to support them, I felt this is a valuable way to look into it, and I appreciate the committee's taking this up today and addressing this problem.
Thank you. Any discussion on House Resolution 218? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Representative. It'll be good to have that information, I think. Do you have a feel for the total cost to the taxpayer to make this happen?
Well, the office is already, it directs the office that's already involved. They're there, that's what they do. It's a bipartisan committee, and these studies are done. So there is no, to my knowledge, extra expense to have the study put underway. It gives them a year to do it, and they will report back to the House, the Senate, and the governor, of course. At that time, depending upon what's found in the study, if any changes were implemented in salary and structure, in about a year, we would have some maybe expense because I do believe we're underpaid. But currently, I do not believe that to pass this resolution and have the study done, there is no extra expense on the taxpayer. Good question, Representative James.
Okay. And second, Part B, well, no, waves off. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion? Okay, so then, seeing no further discussion, the question is, will the committee report this resolution? Those who want to report it will vote aye. Those opposed, no. Andrew, will you call the roll?
Vitale,
Yes?
Brown,
Designation yes?
Fleming. Yes. Hohenstein,
Designation yes?
Isaacson,
Yes.
Kazim,
Designation yes?
Otten,
Designation yes?
Pieli,
Designation yes?
Rivera, Salisbury,
Designation yes?
Siegel,
Designation yes?
Steele,
Designation yes?
Takak,
Designation yes?
Webster,
Yes.
Rader,
Yes.
Bashline,
Designation yes.
Day,
Yes.
Flick,
Designation yes.
James, Mahaffey, Pugh,
Designation yes.
Schmidt,
Designation yes.
Schaefer,
Designation yes.
Stender, Twardzik,
Designation yes.
Wentling.
Yes.
Okay, the resolution is approved and will be reported to the House as a whole. The chair next calls up the chair next calls up Senate Bill 109. Would the staff read a summary or describe this bill?
Senate Bill 109 reduces maximum license fee for groin structures to $250.
Okay. This is a bill that our leadership wants moved, so it could be part of the discussion with regard to various bills relating to the budget. It deals with something called groin structures, which are perpendicular structures jutting out from bodies of water to prevent erosion. There's been concern by local representatives with regard to the amount of the fee and the hardship it poses on local shoreline owners. So in deference to leadership, will be supportive of Senate Bill 109. Is there any discussion on Senate Bill 109? Okay, hearing no discussion. The question is, will the committee approve Senate Bill 109? Those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. Andrew, would you take the roll?
Vitale,
Yes.
Brown,
Designation yes.
Fleming. Yes. Hohenstein,
Designation yes.
Isaacson,
Yes.
Kazim,
Designation yes.
Otten,
Designation yes.
Pieli,
Designation yes.
Rivera, Salisbury,
Designation yes.
Siegel,
Designation yes.
Steele,
Designation yes.
Takak,
Designation yes.
Webster,
Yes.
Rader,
I would support Democratic leadership, yes.
It's a Republican bill.
Bashline,
Designation, yes.
Day,
Yes.
Flick,
Designation, yes.
James, Mahaffey, Pugh,
Designation, yes.
Schmidt,
Designation, yes.
Schaefer,
Designation, yes.
Stender, Twardzik,
Designation, yes.
Wentling.
Yes.
Okay, the bill, receiving a sufficient number of yes votes, will be reported out of committee to the House as a whole. The final bill for today is House Bill 364. The chair calls up House Bill 364, printer's number 320. Will staff read a summary or give us a summary of this amendment?
House Bill 364 restores the authority of DEP and EQB to change bonding amounts for conventional oil and gas wells.
Okay, as we've heard at a recent hearing, conventional gas wells are being abandoned at a rate much more quickly than they are being plugged. Data provided by DEP has indicated that about 1,154 wells plus have been abandoned since 2022. And in that similar time frame, only 308 wells, give or take, have been plugged. Abandoned wells pose significant environmental problems. Gas migration from these abandoned wells can migrate into structures, causing the risk of explosion. These abandoned wells can cause groundwater problems, surface water contamination, groundwater contamination, and also emit methane, which is a powerful greenhouse gas. I think the problem and the reason why a recent DEP report has described the abandonment of these wells as almost a routine business practice is that the amount of the bond on these wells, the amount of the surety to ensure their plugging after their use is far too low, $2,500. The cost of plugging these wells, estimates for some are in excess of $100,000. So drillers are just simply walking away, leaving this cost and pollution to the future to deal with. One, back in 2022, as part of a budget deal, the authority of the DEP and the Environmental Quality Board to adjust amounts to reflect actual costs of plugging was taken away from it for 10 years, exacerbating this problem. What this bill would do, in its simplest terms, would be simply to restore the law as it relates to this issue back to the way it was in 2022. Any discussion on House Bill 364? Chair Rader.
Thank you, Chairman. I think environmentally, everyone wants to see these wells plugged. I think there's no disagreement there. It's just how we get there, and we do have a disagreement about that. I've been told most of the wells are older wells. prior to the bonding being in place, and we do have bonding on the wells, and we can agree or disagree if it's enough or not. We do have that already. If we did an environmental quality board and did, as this says, they could adjust that rate. They want to start at around 38,000. They could adjust that rate every 2 years, which would be really difficult on a small company. You need some sort of cost certainty. What if they went from 38,000 to 60,000 because they think it costs 100,000 to plug them? I don't think that would be a good thing for the businesses and nor for the Pennsylvania as a whole. We need to get the wells capped. That's what's important, and that's what we should focus on. I know the feds have given hundreds of millions of dollars to Pennsylvania to help do this. I don't think we're doing it in a proper manner. I think there's a lot of waste of money there. I think we could do that more efficiently. I think that would help the situation quite a bit. I think what we would do if we put this in place, a lot of the current small companies would probably go out of business because they couldn't afford the bonding amounts. They don't, it's very difficult. The amount of money they make per well is very small. You can't charge more than they can make money. They can't make money on doing what they're doing if we charge too much on the bonding. I think we would be doing that. So that would actually cause more wells to be abandoned, which would exacerbate the situation. And I don't think we want to do that. So I think we'd be putting other people out of business. We'd have more wells. It's just not sustainable. And in an issue like this, I would prefer to see the companies, that group work with government to come up with solutions that make sense for both. And I never see that in government, and I never see that in other situations, but that's what I would prefer, because I look at this and I say, well, this could probably be worked out. Maybe the companies would do the capping, and they could do it for a lot less than what the DEP thinks they have to charge for it. I think there are ways to make this work and to do it. I just don't think this is the way to do it. So I'll be a no on the bill, but I think we all see that there's a problem. We all want to fix it. We are getting some federal money. I just think there's a better solution than this one. So I'll be a no on this.
Further discussion? I mean, I just want to be clear with regard to the data DEP provided. So the 1,154 abandoned wells, these were wells that at the beginning of 2022, they were not abandoned. These were wells DEP's records reflect were wells that were active. But when they recently checked, of these wells that were active at the beginning of 2022, 1,154 were now abandoned. So this is not, I just want to be clear, this is not a legacy problem. I appreciate the governor's effort in plugging wells, but he's plugged 308 last time I checked, and since he's been in office. But that same time, well over double, have been abandoned. This is simply, waste of tax dollars as we put resources into plugging wells, a couple at a time. But while we're doing this, we are not ensuring that more wells aren't being abandoned. It's like a game of whack-a-mole, you plug this one, but two more pop up as abandoned. So this is a serious problem. It deserves our attention, and perhaps passing this bill might bring a little more attention to this issue. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'd just like to respond to that. Yeah, I agree with some of what you're saying, but how many abandoned wells do you think we'll have if we put companies out of business? It'll skyrocket, and this won't solve the problem if we overcharge. So we are getting federal money. I think whenever you get government involved in finding solutions, that's when we usually have an issue. I think they probably can be capped for a lot less than what the government thinks they can be capped for. And I would rather see the industry and government work together to try and find a solution to this problem that works for both. I don't think this bill does that. That's the only reason I'm against it. I think we have an issue. I think we need to solve that. But I don't think this bill does that. That's why I know.
Rep. Mahaffey?
Thank you.
And then Rep. James.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess my question is, So this doesn't affect all the state. I mean, I understand it's environmental, but if local municipalities have a contractor come into town and they're doing whatever that is, they have to put a bond issuance up to cover that, because if they fail on the rights to get that whatever construction project done, the local municipality has the right to come back and draw down on that bond. And that's correct. So why wouldn't we do that in this instance? Because I'm sure there's permits that are locally done at that level. I mean, I'm sure DEP monitors this and does it, but wouldn't it be more on the municipality side to take that bond issuance out, set that bond issuance on whatever the price of whatever that is that they're doing, rather than putting it in DEP's hands? Just curious.
Right. So what we are doing, to be clear, is we are simply returning the law to where it was in 2022. And this would allow, doesn't require, but will allow the DEP and the Environmental Quality Board to adjust up from the $2,500 bond amount, which is wholly inadequate to ensure compliance, to increase that amount on conventional drillers so that they had more skin in the game, as it were, to clean up their own mess. I mean, it's really not right. You know, if you're an ongoing business and you are making profits from your business activity, you do have an obligation to clean up your mess and not, as part of your business model, leave pollution for others to have to incur the expense of cleaning up. So we are simply taking the law back to exactly the way it was about 3 years ago and giving the DEP and the EQB the authority, if they choose to exercise it, to make an adjustment to that $2,500 bonding amount currently on conventional wells.
And I hear what you're saying. I get that. But what I'm saying is it's a construction site, these when they're drilling, it's a construction site in a municipality, and anybody who's doing construction in a municipality has to take out a bond issuance. Now, it could be for the whole project or whatever that may be, but part of that is you draw down on that bond issuance and it lowers it for as the construction is done. One of the pieces that could be held by that municipality said, when you walk away from this, you know what I mean, we're going to hold this bond issuance out until you finish the project, or if you close the well and you just abandon the well. If you don't do what you're supposed to do and pay for that to be done, then we take over and we pay through the bond issuance to get it done.
That's not happening now.
No, and
it's not happening
I
now.
fully understand that, but here's my point. A lot of this conventional drilling is done in the upper part and upper tier. It's like I don't have any skin in this game because we don't have any conventional drilling in Dauphin County. But I'm not sure why we wouldn't put that back on the local municipalities to make that decision and do. Now, I was a local official, so I understand that. But I don't understand why we would hand that back to DEP. Yes, they can monitor and do things, but at the same time, that construction site is really the municipality's problem if it's not capped, because all that stuff that you were talking about, the environmental problems and everything like that, would be more of an issue for that municipality more so than the state.
Well, it is the authority of the DEP's oil and gas program to regulate the oil and gas industry, and that duty involves ensuring that well activity is done properly, which includes plugging wells when they are no longer being actively extracted from. Okay.
Thank you.
Rep. James?
Right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to bring something to your attention, because I don't know if the numbers that we have here are the exact correct ones. But I do agree with Representative Rader. It would be incredibly helpful if the DEP would engage with people, boots on the ground, out in the oil patch about the cost of plugging. Here's my example. Last year, I declined to give a letter of support to the Western Pennsylvania Conservancy because they asked for the letter about $170,000 to plug 2 wells. That's outrageous. They're just simple holes in the ground. Admittedly, you have to know what you're doing, but the guys in the oil patch will do that for anywhere between $10,000 and $20,000, depending on the difficulty. So we, the taxpayers, paid $80,000 per well. DEP needs to engage with these people, not punish them.
So we are, by this bill and other measures, hoping to avoid the scenario where private contractors have to come in after a driller abandons his conventional well. We want the driller himself to plug his own well at his own expense when he's done extracting gas from that well, so you don't get involved in these situations where you have these outside people charging various prices. We want this surety is for the operator of the well to clean up after himself, and if he doesn't, if he just walks away, there is a pool of money from which to draw to defray the cost to our taxpayers as to, the cost of remediation. So we're trying to save tax dollars here by incentivizing drillers, when they're done, to clean up, to plug the well. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Rep. Day.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I think we've served together a long time, and you have quite a deal of experience here. And there's 2 parts being talked about here today. And I think every time, I think our minority chairman and my colleagues, and I'm going to attempt to split this into 2 parts. When they're talking about the second part, you're answering with the first part, which I think you could find much agreement from the members that have spoken by just based on what they've said. Part 1 is your skin in the game comment. I'm trying to shorten my comments by using phrases, if you don't mind. But I think you can find support for that. And bonding on top of that is, I would use the phrase like, it's somewhat of an insurance function where it's a low cost for particular the particular process. The problem becomes we're changing, the part 2 is we're giving vesting on how much each plug costs to an entity who's demonstrated, to my colleague here, reported last year, 35. We just heard in a hearing $107,000.
Right.
And they said, admittedly, that was quite a bit. So I always like to recall that I believe that the legislature, as much as we're in front of the cameras and we have 2 sides, it always seems like, the legislature is very good at playing the middle. And what we're doing is we're taking us out of the middle and vesting it with DEP's only their interest on deciding how much that bonding would be. That bonding, if decided to be very high, would lead toward the minority chairman's comments, putting people out of business that we want in the business, making people who think they would like to get in the business, I've had conversations, not get in the business because that is set too high. So as the arbiters of setting up the function, the structure, we're giving input into how to use part 1, which many of us would probably agree makes sense, and you keep answering with that. I would agree with that. But saying that part 2 needs to be changed, that vesting with DEP would not be the best way to do it. So thank you for allowing me to make comments on this.
Okay. We could go back and forth, but I think we've aired it out. Further discussion. Joe?
Yeah, just, I guess, one more comment. I'm listening closely to the debate. Am I correct? As I understand this bill, it applies only to future wells. Is that correct?
Yes, conventional, yes, yeah.
Okay. And so sort of along the lines that we just heard, we understand, I think, especially from the hearings, that in a modern drilling environment, it's not very expensive to close that well when it's finished. And so there ought to be, maybe I'm thinking if there's further discussion or even amendment on the floor that somehow makes that distinction, that it should be within a certain average cost or a bond that, so that we're attempting to make sure we're not talking about the old abandoned, one that might take $70,000 to create access and close it. And if that's a reasonable discussion, I think we should have that. Obviously, I support the bill as it's written. But thank you.
Okay. Okay. Chair Rader?
Well, if it's just new wells, I see more of an opportunity here. I think if the industry was concerned about higher bonding and how much it would cost them, I think they would probably be helpful in doing away with capping wells that aren't theirs, if they could get reasonable solutions to these problems, because it would save them a lot of money. And I'm sure they see an issue there too. And if we're not going to impact the existing wells with this, then maybe we should try and impact the existing wells with some of this type of legislation by going back to industry, saying, hey, if you help us here, we'll help you there. And they could probably cap them for a lot less than government can.
Okay, further discussion. Okay, so the question is on House Bill 364. Those in favor of supporting the bill will vote aye. Those opposed, nay. Andrew, will you take the roll?
Vitale,
Yes.
Brown,
Designation, yes.
Fleming. Yes. Hohenstein,
Designation, yes.
Isaacson. Yes. Kazim,
Designation, yes.
Otten,
Designation, yes.
Pioli,
Designation, yes.
Rivera. Yes. Salisbury,
Designation, yes.
Siegel,
Designation, yes.
Steele,
Designation, yes.
Takak,
Designation, yes.
Webster,
Yes.
Rader,
No.
Bashline,
Designation, no.
Day,
No.
Flick,
Designation, no.
James, Mahaffey, Pugh, Schmidt,
Designation, no.
Schaefer,
Designation, no.
Stender, Twardzik,
Designation, no.
Wentling.
Okay, a sufficient number of yes votes having been recorded. The bill, House Bill 364, printer's number 320, will be reported to the House as a whole. That concludes our agenda for today. Chair Rader, do you have any final comments?
I do not, thank you.
Okay, then this meeting is adjourned.